Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of The Lindsay Elmore Show. Today, we are going to be talking all about how dysbiosis is making you sick. We're going to cover a 3-pillar approach to help heal the gut, talk about the diverse effects that microbiomes have in our body, how they help us to digest complex carbohydrates, and how we can shift towards greater diversity and greater functionality in our gut. We also talk about supplements and foods that will help your gut bacteria to thrive. My guest today is Norm Robillard. He is the founder of the Digestive Health Institute, and he's a microbiologist. During our conversation, we drop a lot of big words. We talk about things like firmicutes and trimethylamine oxide and microvilli and proteostasis and all of the different varieties of species that can be living on us and in us as a part of our microbiome. So, in the show notes today, you will have access to many different words that you might want to look up and index to help you greater understand all about the episode. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show, a podcast for people who deserve to be healthy, with honest, open, and enlightening conversations with doctors, thought leaders, creatives, and spiritual gurus. You'll walk away with simple and tangible tips and tricks that allow you to live your healthiest life so you can pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Dr. Norm Robillard is the founder of the Digestive Health Institute. He is a microbiologist specialized in functional gastrointestinal disorders such as acid reflux, silent reflux, and irritable bowel syndrome, as well as dysbiosis and all of the related conditions. He helps his clients around the world based on his 3-pillar approach: dietary change, behavioral change, and third, identifying and addressing underlying causes of gastrointestinal disorders that are specific to certain individuals. He created the Fast Tract Diet approach that works without drugs and without antibiotics. And he presented his findings at the Digestive Disease Week, an international gastroenterologist meeting, and he is currently part of a larger clinical trial. Dr. Norm Robillard, welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Thank you, Lindsay. Great to be here.
It is reported that 60 to 70 million people are affected by digestive disorders, and 20 million of those are chronic conditions. Digestive disorders are one of the most prevalent causes of disability in the workplace, and more Americans are hospitalized with digestive diseases than any other conditions. This costs a lot of money, leading to digestive diseases ranking 3rd in total economic burden in the United States. But what we're here to talk about today is the microbiome and all of its diverse functions in our body, because the microbiome is not just there for digestion. It does a whole lot all throughout our entire body. So give us an overview of the diverse functions of the microbiome in our bodies.
Sure. Yeah, and that's quite a powerful statement when you're talking about the impact it has on our health. And I'm one of those people. I suffered with chronic acid reflux for many years. So what are we doing with all these microbes in our gut? And the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoan organisms, archaea. It's like they look like bacteria, but they're not. Different branch of life. All these viruses, the virome, very diverse. Just looking at the bacteria alone And that's really comprises most of the bulk of our microbiota, the bacteria. There's some 7 different phyla. There's 1,000 different species if you look in humans. But if you look at any individual person, it's more like 250, 280 species. So it's not quite the complete rainforest in each individual person, especially in the Western world with antibiotics and bottle-fed babies and a poor diet. It is, our microbiome is being impacted. But it's still quite diverse. And these microorganisms have a tremendous range of functions. So most importantly, there is a survival advantage to having them. And so like all other animals, we have this microbiome that helps us process complex carbohydrates. And that's a survival advantage when other food sources can't be found. So throughout our evolution, at times we've had to eat roots and different vegetables, and we can't digest all of those carbs. The bacteria, though, can ferment them and produce something called short chain fatty acids. And as the name implies, they're fats and they're acids, but we can metabolize those for energy. The butyrate feeds our colonocytes, the propionate can feed our muscles, and so forth. So it's a survival advantage for having them. They also produce a wide range of vitamins and other nutrients that nourish us. They take up the binding places along the mucosal membrane, so they help protect the gut lining and prevent leakiness of the gut, as well as preventing other pathogens that were to enter in through our diet or exposure from binding. So there's a tremendous number of advantages of having these microbes. And lastly, they do have impacts on our brain even. They can produce serotonin. They can produce a lot of active mediators, histamine, dopamine. So, I mean, we could be here all day just talking about all of the good things they do. But as you mentioned, when they're unbalanced or dysbiotic, or there's overgrowths of some of these microbes, it can quickly become kind of a pathological state.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that one of the functions of the microbiome is to help us digest complex carbohydrates into short chain fatty acids. Talk to us about the process how does that happen? And how do we want to encourage that process, or do we want to discourage that process? How does it serve us?
I like the way you phrased that question. You gave me a little opening there. So do we want to promote that process? Well, yes, to an extent, because we don't have the genes for the enzymes to break down most of these complex carbohydrates, whereas these bacteria and other microbes as a group possess millions of genes, and 90% of them or more encode enzymes that break down complex carbohydrates. And that's how complex they are, that you need all of these genes and all of these enzymes from these diverse populations to do it. And they work collaboratively. So tough fibers, resistant starches, things we consume that we can't digest, these bacteria participate. One can break a certain bond, another one can break another bond. And so over time, over many hours, they start really breaking down these fibers and producing these fats that nourish us. So that's the way they do it. But you said something about, do we want to promote that or not? Most people you will talk to in this space that think about microbes and what they eat, there's a single-minded mindset that disturbs me a little bit. And that is that they're starving. These poor little creatures in our gut are starving. And we need to feed them. We need to have more fiber, more prebiotics, more resistant starch, more vegetables. When I really think, just based on the statistics that you mentioned, right? You said 60, 70 million. I think if you consider all of the dysbiosis and SIBO related conditions, you're well over 100 million, maybe 150. You're approaching half the population in the country at one point or another. Just heartburn, acid reflux, 60 million, IBS, 50 million. So it is having a huge impact. So something is going wrong. And we talked about the diversity is being reduced. Not only, individual to individual doesn't have the whole human population when you look at the population as a whole, and antibiotics, preservatives, chemicals, bad diet, bottle feeding, cesarean births, all of these things are reducing the diversity of this population, which I think impacts their elasticity and their ability to respond properly to the challenges we throw at them. And we do. We are always eating more. And there's a huge push for plant-based diets. And I don't have a problem with that, especially for people that are healthy on them. They don't have digestive problems. Hey, go for it. That's great. But these are complex carbohydrates. And if you have too many of them and your digestion isn't working well, or you don't have a good balance between your partners, the microbes, there's a dysbiosis there, then you can really have a lot of problems. So I personally feel, at least for the population of people that I work with in my consulting practice, and myself having a history of acid reflux, that less is more. Lower carb diet, more proteins and fats, not too many of the real complex carbs and the fibers and the resistant starch, and that we're getting too much of a good thing. I really believe that.